Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Cybercrime YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to discuss the ongoing ransomware epidemic plaguing the country and plaguing the world. So as for my background, I'm currently the Chief Information Security Officer at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth, Texas. I hold degrees in computer science and an MBA. I currently hold the CISA-FBI and the GIAC GCED and GSEC certifications. So some background. Ransomware is malicious software used to encrypt systems and/or data until victims pay a ransom in cryptocurrency. Imagine that if your business is attacked by ransomware, consider what happens when your data or your network is locked up. That means you can't make money, you can't bring revenue in for a given period of time, so that creates a sense of urgency. What this does is it makes you think about, okay, you weigh how much money you're losing on a daily basis against how much ransom the attackers are asking for. So it becomes pretty clear that this becomes very persuasive really quickly. One ransomware group collected $11 million from a meatpacking plant in Sao Paulo, Brazil named JBS last month. This attack affected about 1/5 of the U.S. meat supply, and currently right now in the U.S. we're definitely feeling the meat shortage and then higher prices from the lower supply. On the East Coast in the U.S., a Colonial Pipeline was hit by a ransomware attack, and that shut down gas stations on the East Coast, caused gas shortages, and caused cars to line up at gas stations for days on end. The largest ongoing ransomware attack right now is affecting a company named Kaseya and their customers. So the same ransomware group that attacked JBS and collected that $11 million is now targeting a company named Kaseya, and specifically their customers that use their software named VSA. VSA is used to distribute and manage software updates, and it's often used by service providers that provide IT support to medium and small companies that can't afford a full-time IT staff. So even after the big SolarWinds attack that happened at the end of last year, this is right now considered the largest supply chain attack ever within cybersecurity. Customers running VSA servers on their own networks appear to be in a bad place, but those who are using Kaseya hosted VSA servers look like they're safe, and it's important to emphasize that it's not totally clear that they're completely safe. So if you are running a Kaseya hosted VSA server, just keep an eye on things right now and make sure that your network's not being affected by you using Kaseya hosted VSA servers. Now, I find this next piece just fascinating. So out of Kaseya's more than 36,000 customers, Kaseya indicates that fewer than 40 of its customers are affected by the incident. However, more than 30 of these 40 that are affected are managed service providers. So again, it's clear that this ransomware attack group REvil is looking at these service providers basically as a hopping off point to get to many more customers that are small, medium-sized businesses. One service provider is being asked for a $5 million ransom. So consider that if this one company has been asked for a $5 million ransom, what do you think the other service providers are being asked for? Likely $5 million, or in a conservative estimate, $1 million. So you multiply that 30 customers out by, say, $1 million. You're looking at a lot of money right here. What can you do for incident response with Kaseya? So this is guidance from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI in the United States. Download the Kaseya VSA detection tool to search for indicators of compromise. This detection tool will let you see on your network whether you've got signs of compromise. One thing that's helpful is indicator of compromise IP addresses are available in the CISA link in the description below. Basically, this lets you comb through your firewall logs, your IPS logs to see if any of your systems are talking outbound to known command and control systems. So some more guidance. Enable and enforce multi-factor authentication to the maximum extent possible. What this does effectively is it prevents your accounts from being one password away from being compromised. If you do get a password that gets out there, like many of us do on a daily basis via credential stuffing or password reuse, many of our employees will use their passwords at work that they use on their Facebook accounts, and those passwords get out. So MFA provides another layer of defense that basically keeps your network from being compromised, or these accounts from being compromised due to this one password being lost. This next step's really important. So look at restricting egress traffic on your network. And in this case with Kaseya ransomware, what this prevents is basically If you have an account compromised or if you have a system that's infected, the command and control egress traffic can no longer get out to the no malicious IOCs, no malicious IP addresses. And I'll talk about this here further in a second. Something that's fascinating is the U.S. government's response to this ransomware outbreak. This is the first time in history I've seen this much response from the U.S., so this says a lot right now. The Secretary of Energy cited the Colonial Pipeline shutdown as a key motivator for asking for $44 million more than they asked for in last year's budget, in the 2021 budget. The Biden administration is asking for a total of $9.8 billion, that's billion with a B, for federal cybersecurity in 2022, and that's a 15% increase over 2021. So it's clear that the JBS attack, the Colonial Pipeline attack, and the ongoing attacks, you can't forget about SolarWinds, you can't forget about the exchange attacks, that these are grabbing the U.S. government's attention. In general, what can you do? In general, what should you do? So you'll see lots of duplicates here from the previous slides, but again, it's really important to enable and enforce MFA wherever you can on your network. One phrase I've heard lately is that authentication is the new perimeter. So no longer are your perimeter firewalls your new perimeter, but authentication is. And this is the case because oftentimes we're all using cloud-hosted systems. So if those cloud-hosted user accounts are being compromised, and that provides a step into the cloud that you use, which can then potentially provide a step back into your network. So definitely enable MFA where you can. Like I said, if you have a password that gets out there, then you're no longer one password away from being compromised. Ensure your backups are valid and air gap from your network. And the two key components here are that their backups are valid. Basically what this means is on a periodic basis, it's important for you to test your backups, run restores on a monthly basis if you can. I've definitely been a part of an organization that's had the need to restore data, but then we found at the last minute, in the 11th hour when we really needed that data, that we couldn't restore from backups. So it's pretty embarrassing to see yourself spending money on backups and then realizing you can't restore from them. The technique air gapping means basically that your backups aren't being stored on your network directly. You've got basically a separation between your backups and your network, so that way if your network gets infected, say with ransomware, your backups aren't going to be encrypted. It's definitely being, it's really common now to see attackers dwell on networks for months on end, and then what they look for oftentimes is your backups. That way they know that if, okay, they can encrypt your network and your backups, they know that you can't restore from backups. So that means their ransom demands are that much more persistent or that much more convincing. Implement the principle of least privilege for your admin accounts. In general, if you have an admin account, don't just by default give it the highest level of privileges just to get things done and make things easier. Certainly this is easier. Certainly it's easier to grant an admin account access to the domain admin security group, but the downside, of course, is if that admin account gets compromised, it then has that much more access to compromise the rest of the network. In this next piece, I know I spoke about it in the previous slide, but it's important to emphasize the Department of Homeland Security indicated that the SolarWinds attacks could have been mitigated by restricting egress traffic. Goodness, this is an important point that I think is often overlooked. I'm seeing it overlooked by many organizations because of the high effort required, but effectively what we all know as cybersecurity practitioners is that by default, we all tend to restrict ingress traffic, that's incoming traffic into our networks, because we want to, just maintain a level of security there. But oftentimes for ease of use, we often allow all egress traffic to go out of our networks and to the internet. Consider though what you could do if you were to identify what's legitimate traffic. So say from your network you need to talk to Microsoft for updates and for cloud services, Amazon, Box.com. One thing you could do is effectively start by default deny outbound and then just start allowing traffic that needs to be getting outbound. And the positive about this is if you get something infected on your network, that command and control egress traffic can no longer talk outbound. So say you get a dropper on your network that's trying to download malware. If you have the egress traffic restricted, that malware can no longer come in and be downloaded and then spread out. It just makes life so much more difficult for attackers. Another piece that it does that it helps with is data exfiltration prevention. Attackers could still use legitimate services like Microsoft storage or Amazon storage or Google storage to exfiltrate data, but the good thing is it prevents them from getting to their own command and control IP addresses. Some more best practices. Perform a cost-benefit analysis of cybersecurity spending and expenses versus what the impact of downtime would be due to a ransomware infection. So consider the case of the Colonial Pipeline. Consider that they pay the $11 million ransom, but also consider how much revenue do you think they lost by having their pipeline shut down for days on the East Coast. What's the public relations impact of the United States federal government, the Secretary of Energy, coming down and citing your company as the key motivator for spending more money in government cybersecurity? What does that public relations hit do for your company? Consider all that against the cybersecurity spend. Again, we can all spend on cybersecurity, but of course at a certain point, the return on investment doesn't make sense. So identify for your company what that means, where that line is, what that tipping point is. Something else I recommend is if your company is of a significant size, if your revenue stream is of a significant size, consider hiring somebody external to conduct what's called a ransomware risk assessment. This is something I've seen more recently, but basically what this does is it assesses your risk to ransomware. If you do get infected, what's that financial impact going to be? What's the impact of your downtime and lost revenue? What's the impact of the payout you're going to have to make to individuals to pay for their identity protection? What's the payout going to be for lawsuits that you face? Further, something else you can do is conduct what's called, or pay somebody to conduct what's called an information security risk assessment. And effective what this does is it measures the effectiveness of your cybersecurity practice. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.